Right, Emma. So when somebody has so many interests, skills, thoughts, where do they start with building a personal brand?
So I would always say you want to start with your why. So, like, why are you building it? What is the reason behind it? And I know when we started building your personal brand, your why was a bit of an issue. Like, we were trying to find it and trying to figure it out. And it was really hard to get to. And I completely relate that it's not always the easiest thing to discover. So, there's a process you can go through to figure out what is your why. But the reason why I say to start with that center point of like the mission behind what you do, why you're actually creating your personal brand, is because it allows you to link in all of your interests or find the ones that are the most relevant to what you're doing and knowing which ones to mention and bring up when you're building your personal brand. So, for example, like with my personal brand, being creative is part of what I do, but it's mainly through the graphic design work that I do within the business and the design work in the business. I'm not always sharing like the side projects I'm working on because that doesn't feel relevant for the mission that I'm on and the personal brand that I'm building. The same with my well-being, like I'm talking about anxiety and mental health. That's an interest and something I want to advocate for, but it's not necessarily, I'm not talking about it in the broader sense. I'm talking about it in the world of business and comfort zones, public speaking, all of that kind of stuff. So it's finding out the why, the reason behind what you do and why you're building your personal brand that should be the center of like bringing all those different topics together. But what has been one thing for you that's helped you kind of decide where to focus when it's come to your different interests?
So for me, it's been the process of realization that as somebody who's really creative and wants to build a business, the two don't often go together. And I think that's why we see a lot of creatives struggling, because they don't have a clear business focus or a way or an understanding for them to turn their creativity into a business. So that's been a real struggle for me, and I've had to really dig deep to understand that. So my biggest challenge has been really, I guess, focusing on one thing and bringing in elements of creativity into that one thing, but not necessarily trying to shoehorn everything into it. It's knowing when to let go of some things, when to bring other things in. What would you say about if you're a multi-hyphenate, which is a term I only heard in the scheme of things quite recently, and I don't think many people use it. Do you?
It was bigger a few years ago. So Emma Gannon wrote a book called The Multi-Hyphenate. So that's all about that and having different interests and how you build it into your career. So it definitely was something that was used like about 5-6 years ago, I'd say. And then it's not really that popular anymore. But I think a lot of people would relate to being a multi-hyphenate or have multiple interests because, I mean, that's who we are as humans. Like we don't fit into a box. And that's something we wrote about recently in the Lucky Founders newsletter, which is like you don't need to niche down with your personal brand. You can actually find the intersections between your interests, your skills, the opportunities that are out there, the mission that you're on, and use that to form your personal brand. So I think often people find it quite liberating when they're thinking about building their personal brand because they don't have to fit into one niche and one box. So yeah, it's quite an interesting way to approach it.
Do you think it can be somehow damaging, though, if you put yourself out there as doing this and this and this and this? It dilutes that one thing that you can be known for as doing really well.
It depends what kind of personal brand you're building. So if you're building a community and you wanting to be a creator, so creator first, business owner second, I'd say that it's good to have your multiple interests out there because it works from like it's the new era of like influencers. You've got that kind of perspective. If you're a business owner and you want to be a thought leader in a space and you want to be known for a particular topic, then it's really good to niche down and pick one area. So you've got Maya who does the visualization, the mental fitness coach. She's really good at actually standing out in that space and talking about mental health visualization. That's what she's known for. because of her own journey that she's been on to get to where she is through visualization. So she's known for that one thing. So yes, you can niche down, but actually you can also stay quite open as well. It depends on what kind of career path you want to go on. It's like understanding what your audience wants. If you're building a community, it's likely they're going to have different interests and different things. But if you're building a business, then it could be focused around that one particular area.
And in terms of doing one thing well, how would you advise somebody to lock into that when they do have a range of different interests? Because I guess interest drives a lot of our actions, right? And it can be really hard for somebody to let things go. So, for example, if they are really creative, but they need to let some of that go to focus on making it a business. I mean, for example, we hear a lot of creatives say, well, they'll spend 25% of the time being creative and the rest of the time on the business. So that can be a real struggle. So how would you suggest somebody manages their interests?
I think, again, going back to that why, like what is the mission that you're on? So like for me, I'm on the mission to support 100,000 underrepresented founders build businesses. Me sharing a painting that I've done at the weekends, it might be interesting if I shared it on stories on Instagram for my like followers that are like loyal, diehard fans that want to see what I'm doing, but it's not going to be a mainstream post that I put out on LinkedIn because it doesn't fit it doesn't fit the narrative that I'm building. It doesn't help me towards that mission, but it is part of me and my personal brand, but it's not strategically part of the core message. So I'd say you can still have those elements, and there's different types of content. You've obviously got your reach content where you're wanting to reach more people and trying to get out to your target audience, but you've got nurture content as well. So that's nurturing people that you've got in your community. So that's where you can go a little bit deeper. And maybe you have that in private spaces like newsletters, communities that you're building. Like maybe it's more of like a YouTube channel or a club that you have, but actually the broader kind of personal brand that you share should be more targeted around what is it, what's the mission you're on, what's your why, and like, is it moving you towards that with your interest? Does it make sense to them? If it doesn't, then it's probably not part of the picture right now. But I'd also say it depends at what stage of your personal brand you are. Like if you are just starting out, don't do everything because it's confusing. If you have been building for years and you're now wanting to move into a different area or you're wanting to broaden out your personal brand, then start introducing the other interests. But it depends on what stage you're at with building your personal brand as well.
And you've got to protect your time and energy, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll end up just going, like, feeling like you're getting a lot of opportunities in that don't fit what's right for you. Like, I was speaking to a friend about this recently and saying, like, the universe or the world out there won't be able to send you the right opportunities if it doesn't know what you're looking for. So if you're saying yes to everything, you're putting yourself out there for loads of different things, it's going to confuse the message and you're going to get loads of inbound, but for all the different things, it's not going to be really clear about what you want to do. So you want to be clear about the message you're putting out so you're attracting those right opportunities to you, because that's ultimately the point of a personal brand. You're not just doing it, most people are not just doing it for fun. They are doing it to attract those opportunities. But what would you say, like, how would you balance the interests? Because obviously you want to kind of love creating, or at least enjoy creating your personal brand, and you don't want to resent it, which if you're shutting out half of your creative side, then, or part of your creative side, how are you fulfilling that? Or does it need to be part of the personal brand?
It's really difficult. So I need to nurture my creativity. And if that can align with my personal brand and therefore my audience and my intent to engage that audience in the context of business, then great, that's perfect. So for me, it's been a bit of a journey trying to understand how that works and moulding my creativity around that has actually helped. And I didn't really take that approach previously. It was something very separate. And because I have this deep desire to build an audience around what I do, I know a lot of people, they sit in their workshop and they just make stuff. They'll create, for example, just for the sheer pleasure of it. That would be me, but I would need to have an audience for that work, and I can't really explain why. I think it's because I want to make, well, I know it's because I want to make an impact and I want to add value and to help people, which is going back to when we did some work on my personal brand. My why is really, really important. That's integral to what I do and what we do at Studio. Hence the reason we work so well together. So for me to do something really separate creatively and build a separate audience that isn't aligned with Studio is just splitting my time. And we've spoken about this extensively. It's splitting my time and energy, and that's not sustainable. That's exhausting mentally and physically.
Yeah, it definitely is when you're building as well. Like we're in the process with Studio of building, and Lucky Founders building them together. And if you're trying to build something and you're trying to build another thing on the side, it's too much because you can't split your energy. Whereas if you've got a business that's already established, it's growing, it's got a good personal brand, or you've achieved a lot with it, and now you want to do another side project or you want to start something new, you've got more capacity because you're not building that other thing. So I'd say using your personal brand to build one clear thing is really useful, because then you're able to focus. Otherwise, you're then trying to juggle multiple things at the same time, which is why I mentioned earlier, it depends at what stage you're at with your personal brand. But I presume a lot of people watching this are probably going to be at the start, or they're going to be in that building phase. And I'd say really just double down on building your personal brand to help you build your business. And then you can add the creative things in later. And not everything needs to be content. Not everything needs to be monetized. Like I know it's said a lot online, and obviously you want to get as much content out there as possible, but you don't have to turn every single hobby into something that's part of your personal brand or needs to be monetized for an audience. It can actually be just something that you do outside of that and you integrate it in later. So yeah, I think that would be my advice around that.
I think a lot of creative projects are grounded in aspirations for something greater, but there isn't really a focus on it. We don't really know where it's going. We just enjoy the process, and that's important. But like you say, when you're building, you've got to focus on the business and don't get sidetracked by something else. If you can integrate, like I do, elements of creativity into that business, that for me is the ideal. And I think for a lot of people, they might not have thought about how they can do that, but it has to be relevant. It has to align. Yeah, and it can be a mindset thing as well. You know, you could do something on the side, chip away at it, instead of, or during watching your favourite TV show, do something creative and chip away, and over time that could become something. So it doesn't have to be something right now. It could become something later on.
I think it's just understanding your energy and where you want to put that and where's your focus. And if you could use your personal brand in the future to move into that creative space, like say it's not your focus right now, but you want to maybe make it part of that in the future, your personal brand is the biggest asset you can use for that. Because if you're building a business brand, it's very hard to move that into that creative space or move it into something else, whereas your personal brand can transition into that space because it's all about you. So I'd say, like, think about the future. You don't always need to know the end goal, but you might think, actually in the future I'd like to integrate that into what I do and have all these different interests. But right now it just needs to be a focus on the business as well. So yeah, I'd say my tip around that would be just start with your why. Like, why are you building your personal brand? What's the common theme that runs through everything that you do? And how can you understand that so it shapes the content that you create as well? But what would you say around managing your interests in your personal brand?
I'd agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. Just be mindful, focus on what it is you want to be known for. And if you don't know, like I've said before, just start and see where the journey takes you, but always be mindful. Don't get hung up on things.
No, I think that's really useful, and just start. But we have a lot of things that we share in the Lucky Founders newsletter, which may be useful. Some little frameworks and tips in there too, which are definitely good if you're struggling to find that like common theme, like that point in the middle of your personal brand. So there's always things out there that you can use to help you get started as well.